add Fat Joe to the list of celebrities that are catching hell for their alleged nefarious behavior. So Fat Joe's hype man, former hype man, was it Terrance Dixon, I believe his name, or something like that, a.k.a. T.A., has come out, $20 million lawsuit. I think that's what it is. Don't hold me, folks. But came out and he filed this lawsuit against it. Now, here's the thing. I'm reading through this, and some of the stuff that he alleges is pretty heinous. What Fat Joe did is alleged to have done. But the part, though, right, that I read was heinous towards other people. Meaning, it alleges that Fat Joe had sexual relations with minors. And he also transported them across state lines. Like, there's some serious accusations, right? Some really serious accusations there. So that's in there. The part where I saw what T.A. is upset about, at least in part, is he was made to have sex in front of people.
Wait, T.A. was made to have sex.
Yeah, well, that's what it says. That's what I read.
Okay,
right?
okay.
And again, take that for what it's worth. Says that one of the charges that he alleged that Fat Joe forced him to have sex with women in front of people.
Okay, so Fat Joe forced him to have sex in front of people.
Right.
Not with minors, or no? Fat Joe was.
Well, I didn't. The part that I read, I didn't see him saying that he slept with minors.
Okay.
Now,
just sex with people in front of others.
Right.
Okay.
Now, is that? I don't know. Did he selectively leave that out?
Okay.
Yes. No. I mean, there's a lot to unpack there, right?
Right.
So and I'm gonna be honest, Jay. I had to remind myself that there is a victim here. Because, listen, we do the J&K show and my comedic mind jumped in. I was like, so wait a minute.
Right. Allegedly, there's a victim.
Well, there's a victim. Let's just assume, right?
Here, okay, all right.
Here on the J&K show, we believe everyone is innocent until proven guilty.
Okay.
And sometimes even after they're proven guilty. So we're going to go with my man T.A. and just say, let's just see. We'll see. Take it at face value. We're not saying Joe is guilty or T.A. is right. I'm just saying when I first read it and I'm hearing in my mind is I'm with one of the most famous rappers in the world. I'm a hype man on tour with him. I'm smashing groupies. And now I'm like, I need that get back because you made me do that. So did it happen that way? Maybe yes, maybe no. I don't know. But here's the one thing I will say before I pass it on to you. And which is, it's that, I always go back to this, you and I talk about this, it's mixing this stuff with work. Technically, his hype man worked for him. And this is where it starts to get ugly, right? So even if all of this other, right, if they were just homies and fellas and boys, and you just riding out with me, it's a totally different connotation versus, say, that dude's his employee. So with all of that being said, I'm going to throw it to you, man. Do you think when this is all said and done that this is going to come out that Joe did something shameful and he's guilty of this? Or do you think this is going to come out as Terrance, a.k.a. T.A., on a money grab?
I'm tired of hearing about these stories, Kay. I mean, I'm really tired of talking about all these celebrity stories that are getting sued for these sexual harassment cases, and they've happened years upon years ago, and they're just coming out now and all stuff. Like, I'm just sick of it. And I'm not, listen, and if it's true, like you said, if it's true, I feel bad for the victims. I'm with you on that.
Right.
I just feel like, in my mind, I feel like a lot of times they're money grabs, more times than they're not. Oh, yeah. Yeah. You and I speak a lot about these type of stories.
We do.
You're such an astute, brilliant man.
Wow. Thank
And
you.
I was telling you the issues early in this week that I just have problems with it. And I said, I don't want people getting mad at me because I'm not defending anyone. I'm not defending these people that are allegedly doing these heinous acts upon these alleged victims, right? I'm not defending them at all. But I feel like I'm just tired of listening to it. And you brought this up this week. It's the part where they're being complicit, right? And I said, Kay, you are right. That is the part that is so, it just rubs me the wrong way because I always feel, and I've always told you this, I believe that we are all responsible for our own actions. We know when we are involved in certain situations that are not right, right?
And to be clear,
Yeah.
I was suggesting
Yes.
that that's the basis of why you feel that way. Not that I
Yes.
said that these victims are complicit,
Okay, right,
but
yes.
that maybe that's where it's
yes, you're right.
what's okay unsettling
Right.
with you.
Yes,
Okay.
it's very unsettling to me because I feel like they are being complicit in it. Again,
Right.
I'm not saying that they are not victims, right?
Right.
But I believe that we all know when we're doing something that is wrong and we're a part of something that is wrong and it's not right. And a lot of people continue to stay there. I've done it myself. I know a lot of people have done it. People just do it, right? So you stay in a situation and you take part in negative situations and you really have an opportunity to get out earlier in the situation before it gets any worse, or the first time that you see something that's going wrong, you can get out. You can get out. You can do your best. We are all adults. Now I understand it's a little bit different when there are children involved and they are not as as smart as us, and they may not know as the difference between right and wrong as much as an adult does. I get that.
Right.
That's fine, but I feel like I see too many adults staying in situations because the money is great right now. The money is great. Their opportunities are great. They're with these celebrities. They can get to do this. They can get record deals. They can get acting contracts. They can get money. They can get their bills paid. And they're doing things and they're very complicit in these situations because they are getting, there's advantages to it, right? And then I guess what rubs me the wrong way is then they come out years later and they sue these celebrities for doing things that they were complicit in all the time. And again, I'm not victim, blaming or shaming or whatever, anything like that. It's just, I don't know. It's just part of me that just keeps just feeling bad about it, right? And I don't want no one right and say Jay said this and Jay he's a bastard. And I'm just being honest with what I feel. I'm always behind the victims. I want that to be clear. It's just sad. But I think in this particular case, yeah, I think it's a money grab. And by the way, I'm not saying that Fat Joe didn't do it.
Right.
Because again, I don't know. I have no idea. But I will say that TA, with all these years and what was going on, there was, it was being complicit at the time. And that part I just don't like.
Right. Well, I think it's one of those things where both things could be true, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Right, to where you maybe were a part of it, and meaning if you're a victim, you were still maybe a part of it as well, which doesn't. But here's the head crack, man. That doesn't absolve a perpetrator, the person that perpetrated the crime or the assault or whoever partook in any kind of nefarious behavior. So, right? So, listen, I get it from a standpoint, somewhat understand what you're saying in terms of if there's a kind of fatigue, if you will.
Oh, man, I'm tired, bro.
Right, in terms of hearing all of these stories. But at the same time, are we better off as a society when now that people can talk about this stuff, right? Bring attention to it, that folks feel brave enough to mention these things and bring it up and talk about it and so on, to where this didn't happen before. Maybe there's something to that, I guess is my point. Are we better off as a result?
I mean, listen, anytime we are able to have a conversation and talks in society about what's truthfully going on in this world, that's always a
Right.
great thing, right? You know, it happened with the Me Too movement and women being able to speak freely now about what's happened to them in the past, when they were with Bill Cosby or R. Kelly, whatever the
Right.
case may be, and now they're free to talk about it, and that's great. And I like that. So that's a good thing. So I agree with you that we're in a much better place, and it's all about communication. And I understand why people may have not wanted to speak up, speak about the truth,
Right.
Especially victims of sexual assault, especially women, right? I can see how that was difficult back
Yep.
then. It's a little bit easier now. And I guess even with men, whether it's sexual assault from one man to another, I guess, you would feel a kind of way. But I just think it's so important to try your very best to speak about it as soon as you possibly can. And, again, I'm not saying that they're wrong, but holding it, whatever. I've never been in a situation. I'm just saying to try their very best, because we know, you and I talk, and lots of people on the net, and people listen to all these stories, and they hear about people bringing up these accusations of sexual assault that happened years and years ago. And what do you see? You see a lot of people saying, oh, come on, man, it's just a money grab, right? And it could be, or it could not be, right? They might have just taken their mental time to take the time, and they only worked up the courage to do it. But it just looks a certain way, especially when I go back to when some of the victims are being complicit. It just looks a certain way because a lot of the average person, they see that, oh, well, they was fine being complicit with it when it was advantageous to them, when they were getting paid, when they was getting these jewels and these cars and these vacations and these record contracts and this and that and this and that and the third and all that stuff. It was all good then. But now all of a sudden, when it's done and you're washed up now, you want to file these lawsuits against these celebrities because all of a sudden you're not, it's not working for you anymore. And I think that's the part that just is makes a lot of people fatigue hearing about these stories. And you know what I'm saying? And this is the thing.
No, I listen, Jay. You're not alone. I think there is an opinion out there from many folks, and they feel like you. I think there's an equal amount of people that understand it, that get it, that still see this through the lens of victims. That it's not just the victims talking about it, but it's also society being in a space to be receptive to hearing it. Right?
Yeah.
So I think I think all of that is aligned up, and I think the last thing I'll say to it is, while you're talking, I'm going through some of the cases in my head, and most of them, at least the ones I think about, will kind of prove correct.
Okay.
Right? Like whether it's Bill Cosby, whether it's Kevin Spacey, whether it's, we'll see to some degree. Diddy, I mean, Puff he's still at trial, but at least we saw some of the things that happened with Cassie from the video. So I think if there's anything to come from that, there is that. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it ain't all.
Yeah. That it's proof. There are some things that can be proven.
Right.
It's just the aspect where the victims, they just stay. They just stay.
Right.